Hi guys, I'm Amanda and this is all about reading and writing. On this video, I'm going to be talking about the books that I read. The way it works on my channel is every time I finish reading a book, I just pull my phone out and immediately give my thoughts on the book. So I'm not always ready to go or dressed or in any way camera ready, but that's just the best way for me to keep on top of it. That's the best way that I want to do it. And so what I'm going to show you is clips of me. After I've read each book, I'll pop the book up beside me so that you can see it, the title, you can see the author as I'm talking about it. So here are all the books I read. Get ready for some messy hair, some tired eyes, and some really good books.
I'm kind of just getting some work done this morning before I go to get my second vaccine. So anyway, I'm just sitting at my desk. I just finished breakfast, and also when I finished Cost of Knowing last night, I immediately started the next book, which was just a collection of some short stories in a series. It's not really part of the series. It's just a little thing thrown in. Anyway, it's a series about a woman who lives in Deadwood, South Dakota. So I started reading it because we lived in Rapid City, or just outside Rapid City, South Dakota, which is where Deadwood is, but we lived on the other side. Anyway, that doesn't matter, except that I knew the area, and so I thought it would be fun to read a book that was set in an area that I knew. So I finished 3 books in the series, and then this book came out, and like I said, it's just a few short stories. I don't know how many pages it was. I still need to look that up, but it was just over an hour of audio. And so her name is Ann Charles. It's called Boot Points. I'll put it up here and stop describing it without saying what it is. But it's just a series of short stories, and they all apparently involve a pair of boots. So I got that with the first couple of stories, but then the last one, I was like, were there even boots in this story? So I apparently missed it in the last one. But anyway, they were cute. Like I said, they didn't advance the story. One was even a deleted scene from one of the earlier books. That's it. It was just a couple of little stories that have the same character. Most of them have our character in there from the Deadwood series. And a couple of them were like assignments that she had to do in college that were super short. Those were just like tacked on at the end. So anyway, it was just probably a little bit more about Ann Charles and her writing style than it was about the series. But anyway, if you haven't read the series though, and you like mysteries, like cozy mystery kind of things, this is really good. I really like the series. There are a lot of mysteries that continue in the through line through it that I just want to keep reading the next book because I want to know what's happening with those like side mysteries, I guess. And then each book always involves a new like main mystery. But anyway, it's a really cute series. If you haven't read them, then go check them out. Okay, so I got my second vaccine and I got a little bit sick, and so while I was really tired and not feeling well, I read 2 books. So, I finished one that I had already started. But anyway, it's called Maisie Dobbs by Jacqueline Winspear. And I know I talked about the Lady Georgiana mysteries a couple of episodes ago by Rhys Bowen. And it's a British cozy mystery. And I guess that's what this would fall into as well. She, except the difference is that she is a detective on purpose. And so this takes place in the late 1920s, maybe the early 1930s. I think it's the late 1920s because she talks about that it's 10 years since she left the war, and she was a nurse in World War I. And she went over there because one of her friends said something like, because she's really smart, and so she was in school. And one of her friends said, well, the boys are over there sacrificing themselves, and we're just over here carrying on with our lives. And so her friend went to go be an ambulance driver because she was a really good car driver. She was a really good driver. And so she applied for it and got to go be an ambulance driver. And so then Maisie
decided that she would learn to be a nurse and go over and be a nurse. And so she did. She ended up being a nurse. And this book takes place 10 years after that. She's setting up her own office as an investigator. But we do see flashbacks back and forth from her as a little kid all the way up to what she experienced in the war, because the mystery that she's solving is about a place called the Retreat, and it's just a place where disfigured soldiers go to live when they don't feel like they could be in society anymore, like there's something wrong with their face and they just don't like walking out around people that look at them weirdly. And so anyway, this was a really good mystery, but at the same time, it was just a really good commentary about coming back after a war and like moving on and what that meant, especially in the 1920s, with the medicine that they had and the things that they had to help them, and just kind of what it meant to be a woman who was also in the war and also saw a lot. And it set us up to go forward in this series, and I'm really looking forward to reading more in the series because I think it's going to be a really good book. I like her. And this one's just called Maisie Dobbs. I'm not sure what the next books are. This is the first one in the series and the first one that I've seen, but I'm ready to keep going. So I forgot to say that Jacqueline Winspear is one of the new authors that I tried, and I'm for sure moving her over to my old author list. Okay, and the other book that I read while I was sick was an Audible. It needed to be from the Plus catalog. And so I'll go over, if you haven't seen the way I figured this out in one of my previous videos, I go over to the Plus catalog. Well, first I go over to Audible and I put in new releases in the last month, and then I choose Plus catalog. And there were, I don't remember how many available, maybe like 19 or something. And at first it picked number 16, which happens to be one that I read a few days ago, Sidekick. And so I was like, pick again. And so it picked a different one. And it picked one called How It Ends. I'm going to look at the author's name. By Rachel Housel Hall. And it's a novella, and the audiobook is just over 2 hours, like 2 hours and 20 minutes or something. Okay, so it was just over 2 hours. It was a thriller, and so I was a little bit worried when I started it yesterday because I don't do well with thrillers all the time. But I was excited to at least try something new that I haven't read before. So anyway, it starts out with a woman who is divorcing her husband. They've been married for 10 years, and she's trying to get him to sign the divorce papers. They live in California, and she's moving into a new apartment. She's been living with a friend while they were separated, and now she's moving into her own place. She hasn't told her ex-husband, but he keeps texting her and pictures of his wedding ring, like, we're not done till I say we're done, and all this kind of stuff. And they're just vaguely creepy messages. And so they set him up, of course, as somebody who is antagonistic toward her. And then she moves into a new house, and across the street from her is a guy, and they call him a starer. They're like, he's a starer. And what her other neighbors tell her is that his wife died. She was beaten to death with a hammer, and they think he did it, but he got off. They had to drop the case. So now we have two people that are potentially violent, I guess, or at least antagonistic toward her. And she's been in her house for 2 days in her new house, and she gets attacked. And so we only see the beginning of the attack. So I don't know that is like very upsetting. It could be, though, if you've been attacked, especially in your home. But then we spend the rest of the novel with her figuring out or trying to figure out who did it. And is it her husband? Is it the neighbor? Is it neither one? Is there somebody else? And it's just, for such a short book, so many things happen, and the ending is amazing. And so I really liked it. I'm going to look into some more of her books. I didn't
add her over yet because I'm not even sure if she has other books yet, but I'm definitely going to be looking for those books. Even though they might be a little bit scary, I still think that would be something fun to read. So I just got done washing my hair and I am going to be getting ready, and I just thought I have some books to catch up on and I would do that now. So the first book I have is called Wicked Abyss by Cressley Cole. And it is book number 17 in the series, and maybe 2 weeks ago, I'm not sure, maybe 3 weeks ago, whenever, I read book 16 in this series and talked about it on one of my first books I read videos. The bad news is, I don't know if it's bad news, she's written 17 books in the series, but I think that she might be done writing books because it's been way before the pandemic since she has written anything. So it's been well over a year and a half. And I don't just mean since she's written anything, I mean since she's been on social media or sending out newsletters or anything. There's another author that writes also like paranormal romance, and she has been in contact with her, and she said she's fine. She's just needing a break and taking some time. So we don't know when the next book is coming out, but this book, here's what I'll just say. There's no point in jumping into book number 17 at this point. But she does have us like moving pretty far along in a few people's storylines. And so I kind of hate that we're ending right here, at least for a while, because I feel like we've just gotten information on a bunch of people. And not on a bunch, and it's not really new information. Well, it's extra information that we've gotten, and now that's it. It's gone, and we're not gonna find out what's happening. And so, I guess actually my recommendation would be for you to not read this book unless you want to start at the beginning. But then, then you might be stuck like me, 17 books in to a series. And then no ending to it. So, I don't know. Anyway, I read it. I just had to. At this point, I feel like I need to. By the way, I did say that it was paranormal romance. This one is very steamy, I will say. It just has a ton of sex in it. So, more so than I think a lot of her normal books in this series do. They all do. But this one just seemed like excessive. So anyway, I'm gonna finish getting ready and then I'll talk about another book. Okay, the next book that I read is a book club book, which means that I only read a little bit of it at a time with my book club, and then we discuss it every Sunday. So these books they take me a lot longer to read because we only read about 100 pages in a whole week. So I definitely read a lot more than that. So this just kind of slowly moves along in the background, and I'm not counting it as one of my reads for this month because I didn't read it all this month. I started it even, I think, in January or maybe even December. I don't know. Anyway, it's called The Wise Man's Fear by Patrick Rothfuss. And Rothfuss. You can see it right here. I don't know what his last name is. And I'm also mad at him because this is a trilogy and he's 2 books in and then he quit writing. And that was 10 years ago, y'all. So I was mad at my book club people because they chose this book. Well, they chose the first book, which is called The Name of the Wind. And they chose that book last year, knowing that there were 3 books planned, but not 3 books completed. I didn't know this. I said, okay, we'll read it. But now I'm mad about it. Because now we finished the second book and there's no 3rd book. So we're kind of stuck. Anyway, our main character's name is Quoth. If you like fantasy, especially high fantasy, it's a wonderful world that he has created. It is both funny and also heartbreaking, and of course there's fantasy aspects. So there's magic and there's
There's different races, but it's not like dwarves and elves and that kind of stuff. Everybody appears to be relatively humanoid-ish. So there's not any weird races of people like that. Non-humanoid, that doesn't make any sense. This is not one that has elves and dwarves and things like that, but it definitely has its own form of magic, its own magic system, and the best main character that leaves, like, I don't know how he writes so many pages and leaves still so many questions unanswered. And I'm sad that there's not a third book, and my advice to you, even though I'm giving this 5 stars, my advice to you is to not read this until the third book is at least like if you have a date and you can pre-order it, then start with book number 1. Because, I mean, I'm telling you, it's incredibly disappointing to get this far into this guy's life and his story and then have no ending. Okay, one last book to talk about before I leave today. I watch Bookish Realm's channel, and she just did a video she just did a video not too long ago that was about the 100 books that she thought you should read before you die, because she had reacted to a list of 100 books that you should read before you die. So she made her own list. Anyway, I thought that it was a really good list, so I copied it over onto a separate spreadsheet next to my new authors spreadsheet, and there's my dog. And I decided to add that to my rotation, one of those 100 books on Audible and on Kindle. So some of them are graphic novels, so when I get to those will for sure be on Kindle, but the rest of the time I'm just randomly picking a number. I've probably already read maybe 5 of her 100 books. So you can see here that I just told her to pick a number 1 to 100, and then I had to add 1 because the author spot takes up the number 1 at the top, and then I just scrolled down to it, and it was the Underground Railroad. I heard her talk about it, and I've heard other people talk about it, but here's all I knew about it, was that it was a story about escaping from slavery in what we would think of as the Underground Railroad, only this one is an actual railroad. And so I didn't really know what to think. I kind of expected it to be fantasy and like magic, but it's straight up historical fiction, and they've just added in that the Underground Railroad is an actual railroad. Anyway, our story is mostly about Cora, who is born a slave on a plantation in Georgia. Her mother was born a slave. Her grandmother, however, was captured and brought into slavery. And so she's heard stories from them, but it's kind of confusing at the beginning, only because you're trying to get everybody straight and figure out who everybody is. But it's broken up, the book is broken up into sections because she's moving across the country as she goes on this Underground Railroad. So I'm not going to give anything away except to just say that it's so good. So that's it. That's the books that I've read. Let me know what you've read. Let me know if you've read any of these or what you are planning to read. I just want to talk about books. If you've read anything that I've read, let's talk about it. If you have something that you want me to read, let me know down below. I will read anything at least once. So let's talk about books down in the comments below. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Bye guys.